Lauren Matthias and survivor of a false prophet, Dr. Christine Marie, continue to fight for justice in Utah.
And I take responsibility for my flawed thinking by learning how to think critically, by no longer relying on magical thinking or feelings or coincidences, by studying and I went back to school. I have a PhD now. I'm Dr. Christine now. And so I've taken responsibility for my role in what happened to me. But I don't need to confess what I did wrong, which is an issue that I have with Utah. What would make me really happy is to one day have the chance to speak before the lawmakers and say, you have to stop failing your women. This is what happened to me. There was no opportunity for me to have justice of any kind, not $1 back, not one audience with a lawmaker, nothing, and let alone all the many, many, many crimes that he has committed since me that would not have happened. Mm-hmm. And again, that is my opinion, that he hasn't been convicted of any crimes, but he has certainly been reported time and time and time again. And he just slips through the cracks every time. So when the Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell story came out, people contacted me because when they saw Chad, they thought of my prophet.
Adam.
Yeah.
You would call him.
Right.
Yes.
Adam. And they thought, you know what? They did the same thing that I did, which was make the assumption that Adam is the ringleader and that he's manipulating her. Mm-hmm. Because that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I do see a lot of similarities. There's the sealed portion, or the translating ancient scriptures, making yourself into a prophet. There's the gathering when it happened, because I was on a really great path, but I'm on a different path because now I can relate. I am in a position where I'm an intermediary for the FLDS and different parts of the outside world. And that's a first. I'm able to get therapy services into these women, which never happened before.
And not if they leave the church now.
That's right. And I learned that it doesn't matter if somebody believes differently from you, or if you don't like what they believe, they still deserve to have civil rights. They still deserve humanitarian support. And we should not use a person's religion as a filter to determine whether or not we should be kind to them. I believe that if we can be kind to people who are different from us, we can change the world. That's probably the biggest lesson that I learned. Instead of blaming everybody for the harm that came to them or for the terrible things that you think they believe, why not reach out with unconditional love and see if you can make a difference? You're not going to change anybody's mind by attacking them. You don't change minds through attacks and through facts. You change minds through caring and emotion and helping people learn to think for themselves. Donations go to the charities that help the people who've left, but I also help people who have left, and we also help people if they choose to leave.
You help humans.
Right.
It's not an if. There's no if with what you do.
Right. I just figure we all need to stop judging and start helping. And how can somebody gain trust in the outside world if every message that they get is that you're despised in the outside world? Their children deserve as much help as the rest of the children in the world. They've been through a lot, and guess what? I get to accomplish my mission of trying to help children.
You were a victim who never got justice because you were part of a fringe religious group. And so I see you now heading to go live in a place many people would not have chosen to go live, to be that victim's advocate.
In my doctoral program, one of the things that I learned about is priming in the brain, and how when you prime the brain is more likely to see something that isn't there or see something in a certain way. For example, there was a study done where people had to put money in a box. It was called the honesty box at work for a carton of milk. And one week there would be a calendar by the box that had flowers. The next week it would have eyes. And on the weeks when it had eyes, people were more honest. And yet at the end of the study, they hadn't even consciously made the awareness that there were eyes or that the calendar was changing, and yet somehow feeling like they were being watched made them more honest. In my case, I had a picture on my wall of Moroni, the angel Moroni, kneeling down with the gold plates. So it was more real to me. In Mormonism, you have all these stories of prophets and supernatural people that live forever. There are books about it, and it's very real in your world. So the world that Lori and Chad are coming out of is like a fertile garden for Chad to experiment with some of his fictional things and making them seem real. Priming is so interesting. We think we're in charge of all of our thoughts, but there's a mentalist named Derek Brown. He did a study or an experiment with 2 marketers, and his goal was to prime them from the time they got off the train to the time they got to the office, to prime them with messages they were not consciously aware of, so that when they came into his office and he asked them, "Can you make up a slogan for my taxidermy business?" that they would make up a slogan similar to what he had intentionally primed them with. And the results were stunning, and you can see this on YouTube. And it was something like "all good dogs go to heaven" or something like that. He had written the slogan and the picture that he wanted in advance and placed it on the table under something. And so when they came up with theirs, it was so similar to the one that was already on their table. And they were like, "How did this happen?" And that's an example of priming, because our brain will not even realize that we're grabbing onto things and they're influencing our decisions. And that's what happened to me too. Going to church every Sunday and believing in Joseph Smith and singing "We Thank Thee, O God, for a Prophet," and studying everything I could about the Book of Mormon, and things that are not logical became like realistic to me when they were illogical. And I don't know how much of that contributed to the thought process or the irrationality of what happened and the tragedy in Lori's life. But I just think that in order to understand her, we have to understand that our brains play tricks on us, and nobody is immune.
Yeah, nobody.
No one.
And thank you for sharing that important lesson
Of doing something wrong and then having their entire life devastated because of a mistake.
Yes, I feel that.
Right. The thing is, it's public shaming and public humiliation. People are getting involved and doing this to others. And, the reason they do it is because maybe they're projecting their own rage. Their own harm. Maybe they're finding somebody to get even with because they didn't get justice. Or maybe there's something called third-party punishment, which happens in every culture, where even if you don't know somebody, you want to get involved in punishing them because it tells the world that you're one of the good ones. We do this to people, and we publicly humiliate and shame them. It happened to me, in the various media pieces, except for you.
Thank you.
You were so kind and sensitive, and it was you're really special and ethical in how you do your media.
I was really honored when you did let me and allow me to interview incredible women that were FLDS. So thank you.
They are wonderful. And one of the many morals of the story here, I developed a tender heart for people who've been just publicly shamed for obvious reasons. And I just hope that we can all work together to be more sensitive and stop hating people that are different. Just see people for the human beings they are, because we're all flawed.
And I think that in our own lives, and what you've learned through your studies and through being Dr. Christine and your life experiences, is that we can all dehumanize if we're not careful. We can all say, oh, that FLDS group that's led by Warren Jeffs in prison, or, oh, those prairie dresses, or, oh, they don't deserve my money, or any other group that we might marginalize without even realizing it. Maybe the political party that we don't agree with and those politicians in that party. Maybe someone whose views we dislike so much, we dehumanize that person that those views are coming from. And I think the lesson that I keep coming back to is Chad and Lori dehumanized, and that's why this tragedy happened. And so to not be like them, we need to all check our biases and acknowledge that we are dehumanizing even when we don't realize it.
Absolutely. We can't hurt people that we see as warm and wonderful human beings. I mean, dehumanization was the beginning of the Holocaust. It's how wars are started. It's how humiliation happens. And humiliation is called a nuclear bomb of emotions. It's the most intense human emotion. When you feel dehumanized, you are humiliated. That could result in many tragic outcomes. And so I love your summary here, that we all need to be more humanizing and stop stereotyping and labeling and deciding that we're better than some other group, because that's what started that whole tragedy.
Right. And it could be, well, Chad and Lori dehumanized others to the point of death and murder and destruction. I think the point of mine and John's podcast is that they were both likely dehumanized at some point in their life too. And really that is the cycle. And so we have to all take a part in trying to stop that cycle.
And how belief can be built slowly, piece by piece, until it feels more real than reality itself. Because Christine, she isn't unintelligent. She is not naive. She's educated, thoughtful, self-aware, and still, this too happened to her. And that's the part I can't stop thinking about. Because when we look at cases like this, when we look at people who follow someone claiming to be a prophet, it's easy to ask, how could they believe that? But maybe the better question is, how does belief become powerful enough to override everything else? At what point does belief stop being faith and start becoming control? How does belief become powerful enough to override everything else? At what point does belief stop being faith and start becoming control? And how many people are still caught in that same trap right now? From the Duggars to the Daybells, there's a reason we continue to cover cases like this. There's a reason Sam Bateman got away with so much for so long. And there is a reason that Dr. Christine continues her work and continues her fight. And Hidden True Crime will also continue to ask those questions, to explore belief, control, and abuse. Because the more we can understand, the less power the next false prophet will have. My name is Lauren Matthias, and this is Hidden True Crime.